we bring back the history of civilization. Pekiti Kali system is the most celebrated system in the Filipino fighting system because we are able to restore the history, the prehistory of the Philippines by bringing back the technology to the present generation. Blade culture is one of the most important culture in the Philippines. It has been there for many years, and we have fought with the Spaniards, with the Americans, with the Japanese, using our blade culture. The purpose of this presentation is to enlighten everyone that in the world today we are facing a very important enemy. Enemy that is blade oriented, enemy that is terroristic in its action, and terrorists who are blade trained people. The terrorists using the blade as their means of demoralizing the enemy. The blade is also ideological to them because it is important that they have to use the blade in order to kill the enemy. It's important for them to kill the enemy by using the blade because the blade cuts, and when it cuts, the blood drops to the ground, and it is a blessing to their part. So, the purpose of this presentation is to see to it that we can change our mentality of defending ourselves from the point of awareness, from the point of prevention, and from the point of execution, because in the process you'll be able to meet an enemy that you don't know and you don't see, and that is the worst enemy. Pekiti is the most important in our survival way of life. In the Philippines, the Armed Forces of the Philippines, including the Marines, including the Scout Rangers, including the Special Forces or Special Action Force Commandos, and also mostly of the military organization or agencies within the Philippines. It has been the tradition of the Philippines that such survival is important in the way of life. Whether it is in the military or it is in civilian, survival is the most important part of life. So for 333 years, the history of the Philippine culture, which is the blade culture, has been noted down to be effective and has been proven to be very effective. In 1521, we killed Ferdinand Magellan. Ferdinand Magellan was a famous circumnavigator of the world, and he was also famous for his skill to navigate the whole Latin America. And we call him in our history as the conquistador. But he landed the Philippine Islands in 1521. He met his own match, which is the Dato of Mactan, which is Lapu-Lapu. And in short, there was a challenge between him and Dato Lapu-Lapu. And history had proven that in that encounter, the Filipino fighter, which is a blade-oriented fighter, his name was Dato Lapu-Lapu, won against Ferdinand Magellan, who is a man of Toledo blade. So, the coming out of different martial arts, it can be Japanese, can be Chinese, can be Koreans, or any kind. The common denominator is how will you survive in real combat situations. Pekiti, as I taught in New York in 1972, brought to so many states, brought to so many countries, and we were able to bring in this to the law enforcement organizations, to the criminal justice system, to different agencies that are within the criminal justice system, had experienced and had viewed the surviving H-weapon video, which is #1 training video in the whole law enforcement organization in the United States. It has spread also to other countries like Europe and other countries which are more in the military discipline. So today, the situation demands that every person should be properly oriented and should know what is the blade culture. Because when the explosive came in, or when the firearms came into the history, people in the military already forgot, or they tried to deny the existence of the blade as a part of the fighting mechanism. They removed the importance of the blade culture and they went into, firearms and explosive culture, which is entirely different from the blade culture. The blade culture has been there for many thousands of years. Even the time of the Israelites, during the time when there was here the existence of the famous Egyptian pharaohs, all the fighting mechanism or the fighting system were all blade oriented. Now, we are coming up to the stage wherein the new warfare has to go back to blade culture, meaning 60% of most law enforcement organizations have been victimized of blade attack. It can be United States, it could be Latin America, it could be in Asia, it could be anywhere in Europe. Knife threats and knife attack has been dominantly observed, and it has been a suffering of those who are not oriented in terms of blade culture. Pekiti is a lifesaver. Pekiti is also a means wherein you can understand how to survive and in peace and in war. It educates you in many ways. It educates you from the time you leave your house, educates you inside the house, and educates you in a way how you look at the person and be able to appreciate or be able to view his language, whether there is a threat or a friend. We are trying to bring the blade culture to everyone. Particularly, we are now dealing with most military personnels all over the world. We have the Indian military, we have the Australian Cobra Commandos, we have also different agencies in different governments that had really brought back the life of blade culture to the new warfare. In the Philippines, by 2012, we are going to set up our war college under the Pekiti system. This war college will educate you from the ancient medieval warfare to modern ultra-modern warfare. In other words, the modern ultra-modern warfare will use the technology from this ancient medieval warfare. The elements of combat, the elements of survival, or the elements of guerrilla tactics, the elements of evasion and escape, all of the elements that will cause the use of silent weapon for immediate removal of the enemy. No sound, it is used all the silent weaponry, which is the edge weapon. It could be a bow and arrow, it could be a spear, it could be an axe, it could be a knife, or it could be anything that will remove the sound as a means of survival or eliminating the enemy. But today, everybody must be enlightened. What is the importance of the blade culture? As an authority of the Filipino fighting system, which is called the Pekiti system, I always advocate that those who want to learn the elements of survival, they must be properly trained, they must be properly disciplined under our culture. Because we are the only one that brought back the life of blade culture to the people. There is life in the blade culture because it never dies. When you face a blade, that's your life because you know how to use it, you know how to protect against the blade, and you know how to use against the blade to blade. And that means in the midst of survival, there must be life in your training program. There has been so many people have been victimized of blade culture. Why? Because they deny the importance of a small knife or a small blade or even a bigger blade. They think that we are not living in the prehistoric age. We are still living in the prehistoric age because history repeats itself. Warfare is nothing else but repetition of the history. In blade culture, there are only two important things to understand. The principle of slash and the principle of thrust. If you understand the principle of slash and thrust, then you will know that there are things that you have to see in common in terms of fighting mechanics. The fighting mechanics must be such that it should be understood from the point of perfection. Perfection meaning every flow of your slashes and your thrusts must be within what we call the geometrical structure. It has what we call the principles of geometrical equation. So the vertical line, the lateral line, the diagonal line, and also the circular line must be based on geometry, meaning to say it has to be perfect from the beginning. So when we train, we start from the doctrine of perfection. And the doctrine of perfection derives from the discipline of, or the doctrine of discipline, which is the culture on how to develop yourself as far as you can go, and be able to go to the process of skill development, then to expertise, then to mastery. Today, we cannot deny that there are people that are using the martial arts as a means of threatening. It's also being a bully to other people, and they use also for many bad purposes. But as an individual, educated under the blade culture, you must be able to face this enemy anytime, anywhere in the world. Because when you are confronted by this individual, you don't even understand what is his background. You don't understand what he knows. You don't understand how much training he got. But as a person who believes in survival, you must understand that anybody for that matter, whether he is from at the end of the world, or he's coming from Mars, or coming from the planets, or coming from anywhere, you must be able to use the blade culture as a means of survival. Blade culture is an education. It educates you from the beginning. You take hold of the blade. The time you receive instruction, that's a very important education. Today, the security of yourself is the most important to carry on, because without such education of security, then you are negligent of yourself. You can be victimized by any means. When you be in the house, you'll be going to somewhere else. You go to the shopping market, and anywhere you go, you can be a victim. There has been so many instances that the person has been kidnapped, the woman has been raped against the point of the blade, and even the children is under the threat as far as the blade is concerned. But if you have trained, and your training is directed for self-survival, your training is directed to the principle, to the philosophy of believing in life, not to believe in death, to believe in success, not to believe in failure, and to believe in good health, not to believe in sickness, then 100% your survival is assured. So as we go along, training is the key. Pekiti is a culture. Pekiti is an education. Pekiti is a history. Pekiti is a tradition and customs, and Pekiti is very important to understand the philosophy of blade culture. Also, the most important in the person is he must have an ideology, and that ideology is to himself, not to others. He has to believe in himself no matter what happens. The ideology to live, and the ideology to survive, and the ideology to eliminate the enemy as far as life is concerned. It is important. Pekiti, you name it, we have it. Don't question it. Life is important. The culture to survive, the culture to believe in life, to believe in success, to believe in good health.